What is good, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy King, guys. We're back in today to check out this video from Jubilee, guys. Male feminists versus anti-feminists. This is going to be obviously from the perspective of me as a man. I'm not a woman, but we're going to be looking at it more in the sense of societally, how is feminism affecting the world, and also in terms of evolutionarily, if this is the progression or if this is the intended progression of, the world and us as a species. And yeah, let's get into it, man. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. And let's check it out. Obviously, I'm gonna give my takes whenever the prompts come up. As we know, in these middle grounds, there's a prompt, and everyone has to walk over and answer and give their take on why they answer the way they answer. So yeah, I'm gonna give my take, and then we'll go from there. Listen to their responses, chip in.
The only thing that I could think that justifies being a feminist today is you must just want to get laid. There's no reason to believe in all of these crazy things that seek to strip you of your masculinity, perpetuate these terrible ideas that men are evil and all of these things. That has to be the reason.
Yeah, spicy already. Spicy already.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Women have it easier than they think they do.
Bruh. Okay. Do women have it easier? Twofolds. There are benefits and there are pros and cons to being a woman. There are pros and cons to being a man. In terms of being a woman, there are environments in which you will thrive if you use the fact that you are female to your advantage. In terms of workspace, if you ensure that you are likable, essentially, not that you have to, but if you ensure like you're likable, most people are willing to help you. Most men are willing to help you because they feel like, oh, she's pretty, she's talking to me, especially men who feel like they don't get recognized by women, they'll be more likely to help you. So yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages, and then the disadvantages in that same scenario would be that some men might take it too far to the point where they try to accost you and and it might become a HR issue. So yeah, pros and cons, depends how you look at it, but I would say, do they have it easier than they think? In some aspects. In other aspects, it is justified. So yeah.
With feminism, it's kind of brainwashed women to think that they are victims in 99% of cases, and all the disenfranchisement that they would claim in like colleges and careers. A lot of
Yes. Before I even let him speak, just rolling off what he was about to say, it comes down to personal accountability. At the end of the day, this is your life as an individual, and you have to make of it what you will. There's obviously people who are born in unfortunate circumstances. We recognize those people, but if you are born in the West, first world country, and you have essentially the world at your fingertips, you have the opportunity to pursue what you want to pursue as an individual. Obviously, there might be pressures from families and from media in what angle you should go in, but at the end of the day, that responsibility is on yourself as an individual. It might take you some time to realize what you want to do, but at the point you realize what you want to do and you do not pursue that, that is on you. That is the problem with you and what you've chosen to do. So to come and blame the system is asinine, because the system will always be a system. There's never not going to be a system. The only way there's never going to not be a system is if, again, we take away the free will and the randomized nature of how people act and are, essentially. That's the only way to kind of come to that conclusion. But it's rough.
These careers are way easier to get into for women than they are for men because they're looking to hire women because of feminism.
Yeah, like in divorce and stuff, they get more property, the kids' rights, all that.
Yeah.
But more so, I think that from the jump, actually have it.
That's a good point. Earlier made in terms of getting more opportunities because companies are looking to hire more women, to diversify. That is an accurate statement. Even in terms of minorities, I have experienced this myself. In secondary school, when I finished that, I was about to go to my A levels. That is probably like the senior part of college, not college, the senior part of high school in America. So I was about to go on to do that, and I didn't get the best grades coming out of a secondary school. I got like B's and C's. And the school, the area we moved to, my parents moved to, there was an amazing school, prestigious school. Everybody in that school was getting A's and A stars. They only recruited the top level, the cream of the crop kids. They didn't want no schmucks. But they accepted me because 99% of the school's population was white. But they accepted me because they needed that, diversity. And when I tell you they took every opportunity to put me in pictures, they did. And that's just the way it works. That's just the way it works. And, is it advantageous to me? Yes, it is, because coming from that school, it allowed me to get into university, college in America, easier.
Men need to be a provider. They're taught to be tough. Oh, why are you crying? Don't be a girl. But when a girl is crying or a girl is upset or anything that happens, usually they're a princess and they're given the world.
Well, yeah, because with women, they're born with their value.
Essentially, I think that whole thing, historically, it's one of those things that is it is beneficial in an evolutionary sense for men to not be as emotional, because in the past, when you're trying to fend off attackers and, other rival tribes, and you have to become essentially callous to a certain degree to be able to fulfill a function. If you rest on your laurels and become complacent, then, the mission will be compromised. That mission is protecting your family and your tribe. So there is a benefit to it. It allows you to work more, I wouldn't say efficiently, but if you learn emotional control, understanding when it is not appropriate to be emotional, will save you a lot of time. Be emotional after the situation has been handled. That's the best advice I'd give men, is you can be emotional, you can talk about your feelings, but if a situation arises that requires temperance, you must be tempered in that situation, calm yourself, move through it the best way you can to ensure the best possible outcome. And then after, in reflection, you tell your boys, you tell your partner, you tell your parents, you tell people. And if the situation is sticky and tricky and you need active advice and help, tell your close friend, tell your boys.
They innately have value. They can create life, and they're extremely valuable from birth. For men, it's not really the same way. You have to make something of yourself to be respected.
Exactly. You do.
Like a pretty woman can go far just using her face. A man can't do that.
She can.
A man can't go to a rich businessman or like a businesswoman and be like, I'm good.
And the pretty privilege goes both ways for men and women. But obviously women experience more of it because men are more likely to be charitable to good-looking women.
Let me come to your yacht.
Right.
A woman can.
En masse.
Right. Let's bring the disagreeers forward.
I have a quick question. Just a second ago, you were saying that a pretty woman could go onto a rich man's yacht and that would be kind of her ticket on, right? Okay,
yep.
So did that help women vote at all, being pretty?
What? Okay, my guy just came in with the most nonsensical take ever. Why would you even say that? That makes no sense for you to come in there and just say, did that help women vote? This is not the 1900s, bro. Women have been voting. They have the capacity to vote. So in today's market, that is a benefit to them, is that they can use and leverage their looks to get an experience in life. Is it wrong? No. You do what you gotta do, man. If that's the way you want to live your life, live your life. Hey, get it how you can. You know what I mean? That's the game, and you're playing it. You know the rules. You understand the rules, and you're playing it. It is what it is. So for him to say that, I don't understand why he's saying that. Did it help them to vote? No. They can vote already.
But what does that have to do with
I'm just asking, because I mean, when we're talking about women's lives being better than they think they are, would you rather be pretty and be able to get on a yacht, or have your liberties?
What are we living in, like 1950s or 2022?
Yeah,
they already have
the
right to vote.
Exactly.
I think something you specifically said shows to me why women don't have it easier. I think it was you who said, women already have their value. Their value is already obvious because they can have children. I don't want to put you into a box, but there are large amounts of men. Women are people that have children and then they raise the child and they be quiet.
Yeah, there are people who are like that, who say this is the only role and that is it, period, point blank, da-da-da-da. That's not the right way to go about things. People who do that, I can't relate to them people. But biologically speaking, it is the most important function. But like speaking from a non-biological sense, yeah, people should be allowed to choose the path they want to choose in life and do what they want to do and live their best life. But essentially, there are mechanisms that reward people who have children in the long run, because again, people never think about post, like when they hit their late 40s, their 50s, their 60s, the late years in life. If you do not, let's say if you're a woman, you don't have kids, yeah, the loneliness you will feel in that later part of life, you might be living up the best time of your life when you're in business working, but the minute you retire and you're sitting there in that house day in, day out, you go on as many holidays as you want, live your best life, there is no legacy for you. There are no people to carry on your name, to tell your stories. There are no people going forward who are going to share what you did for the world. None, unless you had loads of people you mentored, but even then, like, would they remember you? They might say good things, unless you really made it, and actually made it, then, you know, you might get some recognition, like historically, but there's been plenty of rich people in the world that we don't even know their names today. Plenty. And people, like, is it Egyptian mythology? There's the whole thing about you die twice. The first time you die, you know, you die, there's the death of the body. The second time you die is the death of your name, when your name is no longer remembered in the history books, when you are erased from history. Think about this.
And I think
that is a problem.
I think what was really evident to me when both of y'all came up and talked was how indoctrinated into the patriarchy you are, right?
The patriarchy. I love when people say how indoctrinated into the patriarchy you are. The patriarchy is the system that was essential, the most efficient system that was essential to get us to this point where we can sit here and have these conversations. Because without patriarchy, there would not have been competition. Without competition, because patriarchy is built on competence and dominance, the most competitive and dominant individuals will win. The most competent and dominant societies will win. So that, knowing that sense of competition among us, you know, the different people around the world, it pushes societies to try and become better, technologically advance, whether that's militaristically. It forces you to rise to the top. And the people who don't rise to the top, honestly, you know, they become victims. They fall to the wayside. So patriarchy is just the natural order of things. There are things out there in that world that are trying to kill you. It is competitive in the real world. If we were still on the plains of Africa, there are lions, there's hyenas, there is a plethora of animals willing to kill you. So you have to be competitive to survive. You can't be in the sense of communitarian. Nowadays, we probably could make that a possibility, but is it viable with our innate biology? I don't think so. You literally have to eliminate large portions of our brains to get to that point, or at least switch them off. But we might get there with this neural link technology with Elon Musk, so who knows?
You both come up and say, as men, we have to prove something. And those expectations that you put on yourself is a direct result of patriarchy. No. You just want to be lazy. You just admit it. You want to be lazy, or you are content living that. Like, again, if you as an individual are content living a basic normal life and you're happy with it, that's fine. But if you feel that you could do more and you could be more and you don't do it and you feel shitty, that's on you, because you know you have the capability. You're just being lazy. You know you have the capability, but you're just being lazy. But if you feel like you've achieved, you have the family, you have the 3-bedroom house, you have the 2 kids, and you say, look, I'm happy working 9 to 5 and just raising my kids and having a good life, going on 2.3, 2.5 vacations a year, living my best life. If that's you and you're happy doing that, more power to you. But if you understand that you have the potential to be more and you don't do it, that is on you. If you feel bad, because you have the capability to change, especially if you live in the first world country. And the systems that feminism is trying to dismantle.
It's trying to make everyone like, oh, we can all do it. We're all lazy. Like, again, like, there's if you look at the movements that are coming through, body positivity should be, in my sense, as a person who comes from Africa, it should be respecting your body enough to want it to be an efficient machine, an efficient system that works for you and helps you to live your longest, best life. Not
an excuse for laziness as some people will use it. Some people are genuinely happy being bigger and want to be bigger. And if they are contented being that way, that is perfectly fine. But if you as an individual are using the body positivity to hide behind your laziness, then that's that's like some BS, man. That's some bullshit. Gotta strap up. Nut up or shut up.
Those are the values that women had that when they were born that you're talking about. Women did not create those.
Right.
Men did not create those either. I know that's what it's gonna say. Men did not create those either. Nature created those. Nature created those. That's why men were willing to die. There's animals and insects around the world. Let's look at bees, for example. When a queen bee is looking to mate and she flies up into the, about 60 feet into like the nest of, or the flying zone of drones, the male bees. These male bees, once they have sex, they will die. Their life is over. So the whole purpose of life is just to spread their genes to the next generation. That's literally it. That's literally all they're doing. Like, it's mad to sit here and think that this system is because men wanted it this way. No, it's because nature made it this way, because it's the most optimal system for our survival. There is a reason, if you look across history and multiple different societies that have been isolated across the world, that almost all of them are patriarchy. If 99% of them are patriarchy, that tells you something, that there's an inherent value to a patriarchal system, a competitive system that allows you to survive. Because if you're always in competition with other people, you always want to do the best. And if you always want to do the best, you always make things better for yourself.
Right.
Those are God ordained. Men and women are.
Like this, I'm saying, people, you can argue this all day. Oh, men. Anyway, fuck that.
Both equal under God and in value as human beings. In Genesis, you have a creation of both men and women that are made in God.
Oh no! These people are not gonna jive with this. You don't bring up religion when you're talking about these type of topics. I'm a Christian myself, and I would not even bring up religion in a topic like this. We're discussing with people who I'm assuming are non-religious. It's a tough sell, man. It's a tough sell. You just have to come at it factually and knowledgeably. It's my
We're not about to quote the Bible and like some feminist.
Hold on, but
we can.
We're operating in a country where there's a separation of church and state. You cannot use religion as a motivation to make legislation. If I hear one more person use religion as a reason to not give rights to people, I'm probably gonna fucking explode. People using their own personal ideologies as an excuse to implement legislation over other people's lives are simply just not okay with the fact that they can't control everything around them.
Back to the prompt, I mean, I don't think that women have it easier than they think they do. And I think to just make blanket statements like women in society think they have it easy or men in society have it harder, or whatever you want to say, I just think it's kind of naive. Sure, maybe some women think they have it easier, but that might not be because they're a woman. It might just be because of their own set of life challenges and vice versa.
Yeah, and I agree. And one of the reasons that I am so passionately anti-feminist is because I believe that feminism pits men against women. Men and women may be equal today, but they are not the same. But also, too, women are under... That
is the key, is pitting people against each other. Again, many people have said this, and it's funny that most people still want to keep arguing about things that should not even be argued about, things that we understand fundamentally that should not be argued about because, we have the science to back it up. And yet we are sitting here arguing about mundane things in society when the rich people at the top are just living their best lives, benefiting off the discourse and the arguments people are having. If we are all down here arguing, we're not looking up. And this is what happened in the French Revolution. The peasants stopped arguing amongst themselves and realized we are in a shit situation, all of us. And the people up top could make it better, but they don't. And they choose to hoard their wealth for themselves. And they went in there, they stormed
those palaces and they decapitated the people with the guillotine. They did what they got to do to change the world. Again, people can essentially change the world if they band together, but having division is essential for people in power to stay in power without impunity or without people checking on them. There'll be people who speak up, but those people won't get too far.
Under a pressing assault today in this country. They're losing their ability to compete in sports, beauty pageants, also just basic things like that to people that identify as women. And no one is talking about it. Feminists aren't talking about it. So now you have conservatives having to fight for women's equality.
You're making some pretty blanket statements saying feminists don't care about it. And you say, you think that all women just are against men.
To answer your question, yeah, you're talking about women. Women are not all feminists. Yeah. There are plenty of feminists who are very anti-woman. You know, you saw it during in the political era where you have people who will attack Kayleigh McEnany.
That's so true, because it's such a very sticky topic, especially when talking about like the trans topics and whatnot, because like we're still in that discovery phase of trying to find out what is the correct process of doing things. And you know, obviously in time I hope we come to like a great conclusion, but you know, I actually don't know how it's going to shake out, man. I honestly don't know how it's going to shake out, but I hope everyone is able to, you know, represent themselves the way they want to and do the things they want to as the person they represent themselves as. So
and Kellyanne Conway, because they aren't pro-women, they're not for the girls.
So you
actually we have like just a little bit left. I haven't heard Kevin yet.
Yeah, when you talked about the pressures of being a man and having to provide and having to prove your value as a man, I think those are real challenges that men face. That's why like women have it harder too, because they are also being impacted by how aggressive men feel like they need to be able to secure the role that they have to play in society.
And that is facts. That is facts, because again, it's almost like it's a no-brainer. Like, it's a challenge that is happening, but this challenge is unavoidable because of where the state of the world we're in right now is where it's complete, as they say, patriarchy, whatever. It's competition at its best. You have men competing against men and men competing against women in the workplace. So now, since we understand the essential rules of, you know, dating and how women tend to date, their pattern of dating is they usually tend to prefer to date people in the same income bracket or above. In that sense, men who in the past would have sufficed as partners today would not suffice, because they just don't have enough drive to meet that woman at the place she's at, or they're content where they are, earning $50,000, $60,000 a year, but that woman is always looking to seek to improve, because again, the natural driver for women, like evolutionarily, is to try and create an environment that is the best environment for themselves and their offspring to flourish. So especially now, women entering into the workforce, they're obviously super competitive because they want to set themselves up for the best possible situation, whether they do want motherhood or whether they don't. They want to set themselves up for the best situation. So if they're going out there and grinding and trying to get it for their future family, you better expect that they want the same resolve from you. And that's only natural. That is only natural that they would want that from you. So men definitely are feeling that pressure to step up and become essentially the best version of themselves. Like, more obviously is demanded of men in today because of that competition. And is it wrong? Is it sad? No, it's just the way it is. And that's, to put a stamp on it, or whether it's wrong or whether it's good or bad, is just, bro, this is the way things are moving forward, and this is how things are working. We have a global economy to sustain. There's no way we're going back to them traditional old days. Forget about that shit. I don't know, people still dreaming about them days. It's a wrap. You'll still find, obviously, women who want to stay home and whatnot and raise kids. You know, take your time, find them if that's where you're inclined. But yeah, moving forward, there's obviously definitely going to be more expectations on men to perform in the workplace, to go get it harder than they've ever gotten it before in history. While simultaneously telling them to be soft and relaxed. It's mad. You can't be telling someone to be lazy and soft and relax and, you know, be emotional, and yet expect them to callously rise to the top of their industries. Anyway, it's a bit mad. It's a tough one. There's a lot of, you have to really understand yourself as a person and where you want to fall, and then find a partner that complements you, understanding how the world works and how, you know, systems work for the best possible outcome for yourself.
The reality of today is that because of the systems that we're in, the patriarchy is negatively impacting not only women, but also men.
There's no...
Again, this is the thing. There is positive and negatives to patriarchy and matriarchy. We just haven't witnessed the negative outcomes of matriarchy because we haven't experienced it. But again, like, it would be a tough situation to make the world almost communitarian, because you're not then rewarding people on merit. You're just giving people equal measure because, you know, we're all people, we're all equal, we're all valued. But there's definitely people that are going to be doing harder jobs in society, and there's going to be that almost resentment that people are doing harder jobs than other people, yet still being respected the same, essentially. Like, it's gonna be mad. It's gonna be mad because when you hear people say I'm a doctor, and people, oh my god, you're a doctor, wow, that's amazing. Da, 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 da. When people hear I work at McDonald's, oh cool man, cool. You know what I mean? But in let's say a more matriarchal society, those two positions might get the same kind of respect. Like, wow, amazing, wow, you know, in hopes of not hurting people's feelings and, you know, preserving the guys. But hey, shit, I don't know, man. It's just interesting to be alive in a time where things are changing so drastically, and you get to be a watcher to see what's gonna happen in the future.
Wrong reason to get an abortion.
As a Christian, there's a wrong reason. Looking at it objectively, there is no wrong reason. But looking at it morally, it could look dicey if you just keep having abortions all the time and you have no regard to taking preventative measures in terms of protection and using contraception and whatnot.
So I'll just center the conversation around the very fact that, you know, we're a group of 8 men, the optics of 8 men in a room talking about when women do and don't deserve to get an abortion it's a bad look. So for me, from a personal standpoint, you know, I have a girlfriend. There might be some reasons on a personal level where her and I having that conversation together, I might say, oh, I think we should do this, I think we should do that. On a legislative level, I don't feel confident enough to legislate when someone is and isn't allowed to get health care. Because that's what abortion is, it's health care.
One of the paramount ideologies of, I guess, being a quote-unquote male feminist is just the ability to mind your own business. Just to be able to say that this is the wrong reason to have an abortion, you're already headed down the wrong path.
So being an anti-feminist, I look at this and I say, well, I am more religious as well.
As am I.
So I want to say, like, I'm more like pro-life, right? But if a woman decides that they want to not give birth, it doesn't matter the reason, you know. Maybe she's not wealthy enough. Maybe, you know, the father left her. You know, there's so many reasons. And then I also look at like just gun violence and how we're like birthing kids and we raise them and send it to school, knowing that it can get killed. I don't know. I would feel like
it's like not a safe. It's not the best world to be raising a child in.
Exactly.
I think a patriarchal element, even in your answer, not to combat or what have you. The idea of trying to cycle through the reasons why and going, yeah, I guess those make sense. Is
wow, we can't. Okay. It is fundamental that people understand why other people are doing things, because that's where the empathy comes from. That's where the understanding comes from. If people just say I'm doing some shit and people just go, oh yeah, cool, whatever, you know. There is no sense of connection. There is no sense of understanding of someone's position. And the fact that people these days don't want to share why they do certain things, to me, I don't understand it. You know, obviously it might be personal, but to not even share that with like close personal people, like there should be a level of assessment, because we assess everything else. By nature have to assess situations, assess things happening around us in society, whether it be it morally or like legally. We have to assess things. We have to. So to say that you cannot question it is a bit mad. But instinctively, people, if they see someone, let's say, just aborting every year, it's like 3-4 abortions, they'll start looking at you a bit sideways, like, bro, what's like, they'll start to saying, like, do you just enjoy doing it? Or like, what's going on? You know what I mean? They'll start thinking about some shit. They might not say it, but it still be there. The fact that people now would then have to internalize and vote and not speak out their thoughts is then going to be another type of, problem of, I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know, man. I feel like being open and honest and people having the capabilities to discuss and have dialogue is very important. And when you can't question things, that's when you get into tyranny, because then governments can start saying, you just have to trust us on this one. You know what I mean? Don't question it. Don't question it. Just don't question it. You're questioning our decisions because we don't question your decisions for what you want to do things. So why are you going to question our decisions? You voted us into power so we can do, as we see fit, because you should trust our judgment. You voted us in. Right. It gets into sticky territory.
Still, in my opinion, patriarchal.
Even though I was on the feminist side on that topic, it feels like I was put in a position where I was framed as wrong. It felt like you aren't allowed to have this opinion on this topic because you're not a woman. And I think that's kind of bullshit, to be honest.
Off the top of my head, I know that was mentioned earlier that abortion is healthcare, and I first want to push back on that. Abortion is not healthcare. Healthcare preserves life, it protects it.
That's true. That's a good
it doesn't take it away, it doesn't eliminate it.
What about the woman's life?
But when you exterminate a child, that is doing harm.
Oh, but it's
that
not
is
always
not
a
healthcare.
child, right? So it's a discussion when it becomes a child or not.
See, this is interesting because there's action potential. Small actions lead to bigger actions that will lead to a certain outcome. So if you put yourself on a path and you do the necessary things to get to that destination, you will get to that destination. A&E, if you, like example given here, if you want to walk to the bathroom, take one step after the other, you eventually get to the bathroom in the direction of the bathroom. Same with the zygote. Sperm, egg come together, make a zygote, the cells replicate. The action potential will eventually get to a human being. We know this. That's the path. That's the line. We understand this. So to say that is not, the fact that it's in that stage, it's not valuable, it's not human life, that's a problem, because left in its natural environment, the womb, the zygote will, proliferate to become a baby, human being and whatnot. So to me, the fact that it has the action potential fused, because an egg and a sperm by themselves do not have that action potential to get to that point. But once they combine, they have that action potential to get to human form. So personally, I feel like just considering the zygote on conception a human being. But if you still want to abort, that's fair enough. But let's not, like, for me, it's masking the fact that, it's not a baby, it's not a baby. So we don't hurt people's feelings. Because essentially, that zygote could have become someone important in the world. They could have changed lives. They could have changed the whole world. And same for the woman who's giving birth to that child. If there's complications, obviously, that's different. But you know what I mean? Like, and after you have the child, there's options to give away the child for adoption and give them to families that don't have it. So, there's options there. But essentially, it's just giving people the whole Roe and Wade situation is just essentially taking power away from both individuals, man or woman, and saying, look, you just have to be extremely careful when you practice sex and make sure it's safe sex if you don't want to have a child. Make sure you're on some type of, pill as a woman or something, whatever you need, the little UID thing or whatever it's called, the injection thingy, the rod, whatever they call it, or the thing that sits inside your vagina. I don't know what it's called. But yeah, use that and use a condom. Make sure your partner uses a condom. Like, yeah, I think that's essentially what it's doing, just making people more cautious and more selective with their partners. And that's not a bad thing. Like, indiscriminately fucking is
it's not the best for the world.
That's not a gray area. That's not a line.
It is actually scientifically proven. It is a separate strain of DNA at conception. If you ask any doctor.
But if you took that clump of cells out, would it survive?
It's not a clump of cells. That's why you call it a termination.
Bro, if you took a baby out and left it on its own, will it survive? This is the dumbest shit ever. If you take it out, will it survive? Of course not. But if you take a baby out the womb and leave it alone, it will not survive either. Like, it has to be actively taken care of. Same with the zygote. It has to be actively taken care of in the womb. There'll be a point at which we'll have artificial wombs. There's research actually into artificial wombs that's being conducted currently, and there's great progress on that. So at a time, those zygotes might be able to be extracted with, non-painful surgeries or whatever, minimal surgeries, and then they can take that zygote and put it elsewhere, and then a couple who wants a baby can then, take the baby without the woman ever having to carry the baby. That could be a potential future, so let's wait on that and see, but hey.
Scientifically, it is a life at birth, and scientifically, it is, at conception. At conception.
It is a life, but it is not a human.
So look, though,
it has the action potential to become a human. Call it what you will, it has the action potential.
Thing is, so when you say it's about protecting life, abortions are protecting lives of thousands of women who maybe are not able to
at the expense of another life.
But you're already prioritizing that other life over the woman who's carrying.
And in terms of prioritizing life, like, whenever the kid is alive, most individuals prioritize the lives of their progeny over themselves. Naturally, instinctively. You hear about the whole mama strength thing, where women would put themselves in danger or lift heavy cars of children who are trapped. Instinctively, those systems are there because that's what you're supposed to do, protect your lineage so they can survive and, pass on your DNA.
Because of patriarchy too.
That's
why you're doing it.
Because of patriarchy, you're basically saying that.
So what if we're
these
aborting
cells
a female
are more
baby?
important than the woman?
I think it's absolutely shameful how flippantly our society has begun to treat the topic of abortion. You are literally exterminating an unborn child.
To protect the life of another woman.
Then don't have sex without.
They're both true to protect, but again, to protect. If that person has the capabilities and means to take care of, ideally they should, probably have the capabilities to have contraception and ensure that they never get to that point. So at this point, it just gives people more personal responsibility. And is that a bad thing? It depends on how you look at it. If you want to be lazy about it, then yeah. If you want to be lazy, it's a bad thing. If you're not lazy, it doesn't change anything because you're always going to be conscious of the decisions you make and ensuring that you're making the best possible decisions for yourself.
Without protection.
Really, you don't have
get
sex
contraception.
Without protection. How about you don't have sex without protection?
Well, I don't have a baby. I don't have a baby.
The beef is
Absolving
real.
women and men of responsibility and treating grown-ass people like they are children.
Again, we're not emphasizing any of those things. We're going straight to women and making it their problem.
Well, it's a man's problem as well, because if a man gets a woman pregnant, that is his child as well. So one of the things that's really important, what abortion does is it puts all of reproductive rights in the hands of women when it takes both parties. She cannot have a child without a man. Abortion normalizes women making bad choices. We've kind of given a free pass for people to be a lot more carefree about who they sleep with and not really think twice about the ramifications that may come of it.
But again, we're zooming in on a high level on the end result. We're not talking about the systemic issues that cause women to have abortions. Hold on. We're not talking about the lack of resources that make people feel like they cannot sustain a pregnancy or sustain a life. And those are things that are caused by the way men have set up society. So instead, hold on. So instead of talking,
it's the optimum way society is running. Society is running the best it has ever run since its inception. So this complaint is just asinine because, as you can see, it's a forward progression. You don't just start from 0 and get to 100. It's a forward progression. You have to hit the steps. You have to make the mistakes to understand where you failed. It's the same with any great inventor, any great invention. There were iterations. They didn't just go from 0 to 100. Oh, we have the best system and now it functions, it works. No, it's messy. That's the way it works. That's life. That's real life. So to sit here and say the way men set it up, no, this was the most optimal system for our survival. And this optimal system led us to a point where competition was so high that we have fucking skyscrapers and people are living luxuriously in the West. If you really want to solve problems, go to places like Africa, go to places like India, like in Asia where people are poor, in South America where people are poor, and equalize it there instead of complaining from your high castles.
Talking about the actual issues from the top down and going the whole way, we go to the most oppressed person involved and make it their fault.
Mansplaining is overly criticized.
Mansplaining is essentially just a difference in communication between how men communicate and how women communicate. Men communicate overtly and directly, and men are problem solvers. So when they hear a woman talking about something, be it complaining about something, oh, this didn't go well today, the man will be like, look, okay, I can solve the problem for you. This is what you need to do when you go back tomorrow. Easy, solved. Evolutionarily, that is an essential trait for men to have, because when they're out in the field and someone is saying we have this situation happening, no one's just going to sit there and dwell on it. They want to solve the problem in order to ensure people's survival. They've got families riding on them to come back with food and whatnot. So essentially, the whole mansplaining is it's an essential system that allows us to be the problem solvers, essentially men, to be the problem solvers we are meant to be. That's what led us to the point of having all this great stuff, is because of mansplaining, essentially. When someone says some shit and a man says, no. Men to other men is mansplaining. A man says, oh, I had this problem with my, car. I don't know why it wasn't working. Imagine if a dude was saying, I had this problem with my car, it just wasn't working. And then another dude just goes, oh, that's tough, man, that's tough. Most men, if they have the knowledge, you'd be like, look, did you not try and do this with the thing with the catalytic converter and do this and that, this, and like, oh shit, I didn't think about that. Oh shit, I'll go and do that. But in terms of women, they prefer just to talk and be heard and discuss. Because again, if you might take, maybe epigenetics into this, the fact that evolutionarily, women, whenever they had problems, men solved them. So innately, it's become like a thing where the communication style of most women, as they pass on genes genetically, it might be embedded in them, the communication style, to be more just empathetic and listen, more consoling and whatnot, instead of actively trying to be like, okay, stop complaining, let's fix this, like men do.
I frequently come across videos online where like a man will respond back to a broad generalization about women, and they'll be like, oh, you're just mansplaining it, as if men aren't allowed to have a voice in the conversation. And I think that the term itself, it's just not really defined.
And mansplaining is just not real.
Yeah.
Like it literally is a man explaining something, and these people get angry about it. Like, that's the reality.
Yeah, it's just basically a difference in communication, and I think they should really teach this in schools about the difference in communication between men and women. So whenever these things happen, people don't feel like, you just don't listen to me. It's like, oh, he's communicating as a man would, so let me not take this personally. He is hearing me, but he just cares so much that he wants to help me solve the problem. That's how it should be looked at, instead of, he's not even listening to me. He just wants to like talk over me and tell me what to do. Like, bro, no.
Of the times in which we live. And it also, it hurts the ability of men to have conversations with women, because you think, oh wow, if I explain this issue to her, then I'm gonna be accused of mansplaining, or I'm gonna be accused of being sexist because I don't think she understands it. That's toxic.
Yep.
And it hurts.
What I would suggest for men going forward is to wait for active indicators of the need for resolution. If a woman's talking about how bitchy her friend is and instead of saying cut her off, just be like, oh wow, I can't believe Jenny was Like, if you know that this person is an actively bad influence on your partner, then obviously say cut it off. But if you're just talking about certain incidents of, I can't believe she did that or did this or did that, I would never, then you just kind of have to listen and let your partner talk and discuss, and then you just kind of say, wow, I can't believe that, that's crazy. And just those responses, we all know, as dudes, probably most dudes know, it's just, oh wow, I can't believe, babe, wow, must have been tough for you. And go there, it's like, oh, you're actually listening, wow.
And you win. You win.
It hurts women, it hurts men, and it's just not a way for us to have a functioning society.
And at its core, it's completely hypocritical because the feminist plight is that women need to have a voice and they're being told they can't have a voice. And then they turn around and do the exact same thing and say, you're mansplaining me. You shouldn't have a voice about this topic because you're a man.
And we're targeted because of our identity, and no one cares about it because we're supposedly in positions of power, so we don't get to be victims. We don't.
Yeah. And it's funny because only the minority of men are in positions of power. The rest of the people are just slumming it and just trying to get by to provide for their families. So it's actually very ironic.
Get to say, oh, you should feel bad for us because we're men, so we don't get to have the luxury of having the benefit of the doubt of society or the media or any of those things, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to speak about mansplaining from a different perspective because you guys are talking about controversial topics. I'm going to talk about it from just like a day-to-day perspective. In my relationship with my partner, how I try to be really mindful of mansplaining is when she is sharing her struggle, I think a tendency that can be conditioned in me through just how men dominate and want to have to solve problems and all that, is I want to jump in and just solve it and try to explain what's happening here and try to question her experience and be like, hey, like, well, did you think about this? Did you think about that? Well, I see this. That inherently in itself comes off as mansplaining because what is the counter to mansplaining is actually getting consent from the other person. How do you want to be supported? Do you want...
Exactly. So you wait for those active indicators of help to where they say, what should I do? How can I resolve this problem? What would you do? Wait for those. If you're not hearing that, just listen and just be like, wow, interesting, babe. Wow. And that's something very egregious.
Me to support you and listen to you, or do you want me to help solve problems?
It's also, mansplaining is also not just a man having an opinion. Right. That's not the situation. The idea is when a man interjects an opinion that he either is not fully educated on or does not have the appropriate empathy to be able to talk about.
See,
how is that different than a woman doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my issue.
It's only mansplaining because when it happens to men, since men communicate in that style anyway, they just take it in stride and keep it moving. They take it and they keep it moving. But since women don't actively communicate in that style, it stifles them and has them a bit like, what the fuck? What are you doing?
Feel free when
you should just be listening.
A woman does that to say you're womansplaining. I don't think
There's a reason that term doesn't exist because you're not allowed to do that towards women in society.
I promise you, if you did that, it would be just fine.
You just invented it.
No, it's a trap.
The difference is though, when if that were to happen to men, it wouldn't quiet our voices to being completely unheard. My wife is a physics and math teacher. If she has the answer to a question in a staff meeting, she's gonna have to be louder.
She wears the pants in the household. I can tell, man. This guy's, his frame is a bit shaky.
Than the men in the room, because that is the way society has conditioned people to operate, especially in male-dominated spaces. Yeah. That's what mansplaining is. I have one more question. Is it a...
He's actually one of those guys who's willing to stand up to other men, but not willing to stand up to his woman if she does something egregious or if she's being disrespectful. He might come at it from a more rapport building stance of, hey babe, I didn't appreciate the way you did the thing, you know what I mean? Like try and come at it from like a soft spoken type of sense. Whereas with a dude, he'd be like, fuck you, you piece of shit. You shouldn't be doing that. She's a lady, blah, blah, blah. You see what I'm saying? I think he strikes me as one of those guys. Could be wrong, but
about the word.
Yeah, that's what I feel. Is it about the word? Getting hung up on like words like
y'all really don't. Y'all have a lot of problems.
But this is funny because the words like patriarchy and mansplaining, it creates an inherent division, an inherent versus men versus women, which is the problem. You don't want that to be the issue because when you start using words that divide instead of words that bring people together, it's a problem for society.
A lot of these languages.
When you say mansplaining, you have to understand that subconsciously we're already creating a divide when really a woman can mansplain by definition the way you guys are explaining it, and that's just as wrong as if a man does it. So why is it called mansplaining? Why isn't it just disrespectful?
So when your life is not at stake, when you're not being attacked, I think you can focus on language. When you're not at risk of being...
You live in U.S., dude.
Men are attacked every single day.
Women are attacked more.
But I think from a societal standpoint...
Okay, statistically, attacked more in what context? That's what I'm saying. In what context? Like,
in the context of actually attacked, like physically, men would be attacked more because men are perpetrating more crime against each other than they are on women. But it depends on what context is speaking about it.
You guys talk a lot about social conditioning and how women feel uncomfortable, but don't you think this narrative that you're saying right now is contributing to that? Telling women that they should be scared when they're in an environment full of men, telling women that, you know, they are oppressed, they are this, they're that, by telling women they're less than men.
Let me respond to that. They're not telling them that. They're validating the fact that that's the reality.
Right.
Women should be encouraged to be financially independent of men.
That's a no-brainer, because in today's society you have to kind of establish yourself and kind of make your own money to a degree to sustain yourself as an individual. So obviously you have to make enough money to sustain yourself as an individual. But in the confines of relationship, we understand that women like to date across and above. So essentially they never want to be financially independent of men. They want to have the capability of doing it, but they don't really want to be financially independent because they always want someone on their level or higher to sustain the lifestyle that they want to do with the partner they want, and or for that partner to take care of the significant amount of the bills. Most women would rather the man take care of the bills than they take care of the bills. And that's just the facts. That is just the facts. Globally speaking right now, most women would rather the man take care of the bills than they do. And that's just it. So they don't want to be financially independent. The majority, anyway, don't want to be financially independent of men. They want the capability to be independent if the situation doesn't go the way they want it to go.
I think this one's a no-brainer, right? I believe that men and women are equal. They're just not the same.
Yeah.
And I think with that equality comes equal responsibility to be able to provide for yourself. And when I think about what could provide oppression, if that were to exist, would be this idea that they were tethered to men to live their lives. I think if you remove that tethering, then obviously women are free to do whatever they please and exit very bad situations. You know, one of the most unfortunate stories that you hear so often is that so many women are forced to live in very dangerous circumstances because they don't know who's going to provide for their child if they leave. They don't know who's going to provide for them if they leave. And so I think financial independence for anyone is always just a good idea.
Yeah, I want to speak about this through a different lens. I think it should be like women should be empowered to be financially independent. Encouraged versus empowered takes a different sense of support. Speaking to how men feel the need to provide. Sometimes when a woman makes more than a man, men can feel like they're less of a man because the woman is taking more of the boss and provision kind of role in the household. So I think that it's important to be able to equip women with being able to feel like they are empowered, and that
and also at the same time educate men that they're not less than because they're in a lower position. But you damn straight that your wife might feel some type of way if you're not earning as much as her, or you're not rising to the ranks to get to her position or higher. She'll eventually feel some type of way, especially if she's a go-getter and you are not. And that's why it's very important to be very active in your partner selection and pick someone who has an ideal lifestyle that fits you as the man and what you can provide as a man. So if you know that you can only provide like a 60K a year type lifestyle, find a woman, who's in that range or below and who is not looking to aspire to get like millions and millions of money and build businesses on businesses. If that's where you're content, find someone who's also content on that level. Do not be looking for no bad bees who are trying to live their best life, flying to Dubai and whatnot. That's not for you. It won't end well.
That is a feminist thing because it is breaking the gender norms of what is masculine and what is feminine role.
Yeah, I also think it is important though in this conversation to recognize the women that don't want to be financially independent in a marriage. There's a lot of women in our country that enjoy being mothers, and I think being a mother is one
incredibly valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're stuck in their situation, because they're doing something very valuable by sacrificing that freedom in order to raise our next generation.
It's just giving a choice, right?
And their love is their labor,
Exactly,
right?
right,
Their
exactly.
love is their labor in their home.
Okay, I have a few different thoughts. One of them would be the importance of the family. I think women should go out and be financially smart and know how to make money and be able to make money for themselves. But being independent of men leaves this notion of that you can never trust a man or that men are unsafe. And the problem that this brings is in the family. I think
Can
the
I ask you
nuclear,
why?
Hold on, I'm just going to finish my thought. I'll explain. With the nuclear family, you have, and this is for both men and women, they're the most happiest when they are in that kind of dynamic. And to your point about marriages where women makes more than the man, that's one of the biggest indicators of divorce. And I think there is a societal and honestly God-given responsibility for men to provide. So when men are told that women are going to be independent of you, you're stripping away a lot of their purpose and responsibility to be caretakers of women, to provide for women. I would also say that the biggest group of people that are on antidepressants, and it's 1 in 4, are women that are 40, have a career, and have no family and no kids. Which is the real meaning of life is community, family, and relationships.
Ask any person who is older and who is like in their 60s. Companionship and family is the most important thing in life. There's no way you can argue career. It's some BS. For the minority of people, it might be, but for the majority of people, it is not. It 100% is not.
Can I respond to one specific thing you said, which is the demographic of women over 40 taking antidepressants, and you're using that as proof that they're the most depressed group. Men just kill themselves. So like all the men that have killed themselves, if they didn't do that and we're still here, men would predominantly be more depressed.
There's no basis for that.
But also the
men statistically kill themselves more.
But we're talking about two completely different points.
Well, I think he's just saying that statistic is a little bit difficult to process.
It's out of context because the men that
there's other factors.
Yeah, there's other factors.
There's always going to be other factors, but that's a clear indicator.
But that's because the divorce rate is high, competition is high. It's a competitive environment, and that's unfortunately that's the byproduct of such a competitive environment. Is some people can't handle the pressure of the competition and they bow out of the race, man. It is very, very unfortunate, but yeah, that's the way of the world, man. That's the way of the world. Like, it goes back to your biology, man. If you're on the savannah and you don't want to do it, you die.
That women at some point, whether they started wanting a career, will eventually want to fall into a role of being a mom, having children, because that is what women derive the most happiness from.
You got a lot of studies and stats over here, which is cool. But like when we're talking about financial literacy and financial freedom, there are a lot of women that have the ability, that decide to step back, all those types of things. None of that has to be taken away or omitted in order for them to be empowered. People should be able to do in their households what they want to do. And I don't think anybody's trying to take that option away from women. I think y'all think people are, but I don't think that's really happening.
But they are. But they are. We see that.
I think there's more social pressure for them to be boss babes and boss chicks, because that is the narrative pushed, because they feel like it's almost hurts them mentally, psychologically, for them to want to stay and be that, that wife and mother and be the caretaker of the house as their main role. A lot of women would feel kind of bad about that, because all the other ladies around them are saying, "Oh, boss babe, go get your money. Da, 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 da. You can't let a man hold you down. Da, 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 da. He's controlling you. He's like." It's almost like a psyop, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, in society today, people demonizing women for choosing to stay at home. Female empowerment also means empowering women, again, to make the choice that fits them, their choices, and what they want to do. It is just as powerful, just as influential, just as important as a choice to make to raise your kids at home, if that is what you want to do, and also be the CEO of Walmart if that's what you choose to do. We can empower women to be girl bosses, whatever you want to say.
Would you empower a male friend if he told you that he was going to quit his job to be a full-time stay-at-home father?
If he wants to.
Yes.
So,
buddy.
That's good. I just want to make sure, because you're only defending women who get demonized for doing this, and you're not advocating for men to want to step.
But women don't want it, bruv. It's not viscerally attractive. It is not viscerally attractive to see a man as a woman, to see a man who just sits there taking care of the kids, taking care of the house. It does not get them like, oh wow, he's really doing it. He's really doing it. it's not, fuck me, it's not the one, man. It's not the one. Competence and dominance. Those things are very, very attractive to women. And if you're sitting at home, cleaning and cooking and taking care of the kids, you're doing none of that. You're literally doing none of that. So like most women don't want that, man. Most women don't want that. Only the minority of women would be happy with a man staying at home and raising the children. Most women would rather do it themselves.
Step up and do that too. You're only
because most men don't want to.
Why not? Why don't you want to?
Because they don't want.
But like it's just innate. Most men just don't want to. As we understand, men are more interested in things and women are more interested in people. So men tend to find it more enjoyable to be playing with things, working on cars, whether playing sports and doing all these kind of things, I mean, instead of pushing papers and doing cake, like instead of sitting there taking care of kids. There's also women who feel like this, but hey.
Because they just don't want to.
I don't want to.
Everybody should make their choices.
Are you pro choices or pro less choices?
This is a trap. This is a trap.
Because if you're pro choices, then men should be able to choose to go work, and that should be okay. Instead of trying to force them into positions of staying at home and raising the kids. This is why I always say it's always about vetting your partner and finding the one who best suits your lifestyle and the life you want to live.
What do you mean by that?
Are you pro choices? Are you
He's
pro less
trapping you.
choices?
When I asked him why he doesn't encourage men, he said because they don't want to do that. So then why is it a problem if women don't want to be stay at home?
I'm not encouraging women to
It's
stay at
women's
home.
choice too.
I'm not encouraging women to stay at home.
Yeah.
I'm saying that they have a choice, and I'm not for taking choices away from women. You may be. I don't know.
All right, reset.
Yeah, he got him. My guy's on job, man. He's doing the most.
Period pain is exaggerated.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. Hell no.
Okay, I'm glad no one stepped forward for that.
Moving forward.
I'm gonna change my mind.
All right,
No.
next prompt. Innocent men suffer because of feminism.
Yes, in terms of false accusations, there's obviously been a number of cases where people have been falsely accused, and the believe all women trend going strong. Men have suffered. So yeah, some innocent men have suffered, but again, that is the price to pay. Actions have consequences, and some of the consequences may be that some innocent people might go to jail. What can we do, man? What can we do?
So I think today in 2022, feminism has changed drastically, and I think it's really turned into demonizing masculinity in men while promoting masculinity in women.
And that is the key. Feminism should be about embracing femininity and I shouldn't say what it should be, but in its essence, we should be platforming female traits, femininity, as being equally important to masculine traits. That is what I think it should be about, and getting respect for doing those, feminine roles and whatnot, and also getting respect for doing the masculine roles and whatnot, if that's the path you choose. But I feel like it should be bringing awareness and respect to feminine energy and feminine roles, and ensuring that men understand that and how to respect it.
And with that, good men are being pushed the
That's just my traditional African Christian take.
wayside and pushing parts of themselves down and not embracing their own masculinity because society is telling them that it's wrong.
100%. I think anything that is deemed masculine is seen as now toxic. And I see it all over social media. You can't really say anything or do anything, especially.
See, women can be toxically masculine and they're okay, but men cannot be toxically masculine. So essentially, it's almost trying to, in a small portion of the population, trying to invert the standards and flipping the paradigm where the men become more feminine and the women become more masculine.
Even against or even for yourself. without it being like some weaponized in some way or shape or form.
Yeah. It's a shame that feminism has become less about actual equality and more about supremacy. It's not about equal rights between men and women. It's about women being superior to men. And women don't even like it anymore, right? I hear conversations with so many girls that are friends of mine. They're like, I hate what feminism has become because it makes me feel as if I'm a victim, and also too that men aren't supposed to be men anymore. It almost absolves us of the responsibilities that we have as males in society to be providers, to be protectors.
Right.
And innocent men suffer because we're made out to be toxic because we're fulfilling our roles as men in this world. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and I mean, I disagree a little bit with saying that men have to be providers, but I think, demonizing those men is part of the problem.
Yeah,
I would
they don't
disagree.
have to be if they don't want to be, if they find a partner willing to take care of them. But, yeah.
A little bit. But I think also too, though, what we probably would agree on is that in a society that makes women feel as if they need to be more like men, all you get is really bad versions of men. And when you have men who are increasingly more feminine, you get men who aren't being men at all anymore. And I think that's a huge societal problem, and we see the ripple effects and the consequences of that every single day.
When I started hearing y'all talk, y'all have a huge misconception of even what feminism is.
Well,
the goal of feminism
explain
isn't to
it me then.
demasculate men. The goal of feminism is to fight for social, political, and economic equality for everyone, regardless of your race, gender.
And I don't understand this part of why it's for everyone. It should be to fight for the equality of women. I don't know. Civil rights was not for everyone. It was to fight for the civil rights of the black people who used to be slaves because of Jim Crow. So it was targeted. You have to target these things instead of making them very broad, because you start to dilute the potency of something if you deviate too much.
Or equality of outcome, because it used to be equality of opportunity, and that's when I would say I would be a feminist. But
either
now
way,
it's become equality of
But
outcome.
either way, what y'all are talking about is feelings.
Right.
Y'all talking about, I don't like how women make me feel in society about crying, how women make me...
Well, the question was about feelings.
Yeah.
No, hold on.
It was about, are men effective?
Hold
That's
on.
feelings.
Yeah, but
so yes, that's the
but
conversation.
feminism itself is not about feeling. It's about, like you said, outcome. It's about the wage gap. It's about having access.
Oh no, it's about opportunity, not outcome. You can't ensure equal outcomes without compromising the integrity of quality. It's impossible.
Which doesn't
Wage
exist,
gap?
by
What
the way,
wage gap?
right? But anyways,
I let you talk. No, hold on. No, you didn't let me talk, though. Hold on. No, you didn't let me talk, though.
It's
Hold
about
on.
feelings, right? You don't want to talk about how men feel. Let's talk about how women feel. Let's talk about feminists.
Again, it's not
have
about
turned-
feelings, period.
how
That's my
feminists have
point.
turned
It's
on
not
other
about
women,
it's not
have
about feelings,
turned on
period.
other women.
Wait, can we have the prompt again?
Yeah, let's cut back to the prompt because it didn't have feelings.
Exactly.
It's about
It's about
Innocent-
suffering innately. You have to feel some type of way, so it is about feelings. Shut up! It's about feelings!
Innocent men suffer because of
What are you
feminism.
talking about?
And so can I pose this question?
that
to
is
this?
still about
on a
feelings.
day,
It is,
on a
yes.
day-by-day
It's on
basis.
it.
Do you think
Lots
you're
and lots.
negatively affected by feminism?
100%.
Yeah.
120%.
really believe that?
No.
Can you explain to me how on a day-by-day
Because
basis
it makes
this
them
affects your
feel,
life negatively?
because again, masculinity has this mythical eligibility of power.
Wait.
When someone, feminist, what have you, challenges that, it feels like oppression to them. So
Yeah.
it feels
It's not-
like something is
it's
being...
not-
No, it's not even about oppression. I feel like it's the, especially for men who are like on it a lot, it's almost an inability to express oneself completely and wholly because of fear of retribution and being called toxic because of one's actions. Let's say being very bro-y with your bros and, being very loud and obnoxious, without obviously harming anyone, just having fun with your group, toxic the masculine guys, look at those guys, think they're loud and they think they're the shit. They're just embracing your masculinity. Now you have to walk around like a timid leaf.
That's just my perception. Feel free to disagree, but that's what it looks like to me.
I'm not oppressed, so I
That's what I'm saying.
challenge that perception. But also, too, to go back to your point about feminism, that may have been true with first-wave feminism, but with third-wave feminism, that is no longer
And
the
I would
case
even
anymore.
argue because
No, I
first wave
disagree.
feminism and third
Guys,
wave
bring it back to
feminism.
the prompt. And then also just, I love the ping ponging, but just make sure we don't have 5 people talking on top of each other.
All right. There's another side to this too. It's the patriarchy. And so that is what you are talking about. It is the pressure to be strong, the pressure to protect.
But in what ways is our society a patriarchy today? I know you said values, so I would want to get clarification on what you define a patriarchy.
So we should define patriarchy as a group, because I personally am still having a hard time defining it today, because...
Why are you even talking about it if you can't define it?
So, well, I'll try to define it. Do you want me to try?
Yeah, let's
on
go.
a broader spectrum, I'd say patriarchal is the societal structure that we have set up that's kind of, what's the word, sociological values of how we set up a hierarchy in our society.
But and so it's not is defined by, where men are in charge and hold power.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that it's a literal thing where there's some document that somebody wrote where it said men are in charge, women are second. It is a set of sociological values that you see.
So we're changing the definition of patriarchy, which
is because of nature.
To make sure we're on the same page.
Because of the competence and dominance of the men who try to tame the world. That's why it is patriarchy. Simple as. There's black widows, it's matriarchy. Bees is matriarchy. Hyenas is matriarchy. For us, it just happened to be patriarchy.
That's what my definition is. I didn't say there was a set definition.
But that's a red herring.
That's how I define it.
Are you saying we're not in a patriarchal society?
No, I don't believe we are today. So the whole idea that our country is an oppressive patriarchy, it just really gets under my skin because nobody's able to actually tell me what that is. Well, by definition, the patriarchy would be a society where men have power over women and women don't have a voice. And in today's society, that's just not true. Obviously, some people have power over others, but in our society, that has more to do with economic status than actual sex.
This fight would be better taken up somewhere else, in other parts of the world. The West has kind of hit a point, instead of arguing about or trying to get more small diminishing returns, you might as well take this somewhere else where it's still on the ground level and build that up to the same level. And once everybody's on the same level, then you can level it out from there. But at this point, people are selfish. They don't care. They don't care about the women in Africa. They don't care about the women in Asia. It's just about, people in the first world living comfortably in Kush. They don't care about the people over there. It's just about them and living their best life. It is what it is, man. And that's just inherent to human beings, man. We just care about our immediate surroundings, things that affect us immediately. We don't care about things that affect other people. Those are our struggles, and those struggles are as real as the struggles that other people have in other places because we put so much weight on them. Even though, in terms of sheer morality and looking at it from scale, a bird's eye view, those problems are drastically different in their magnitude. But in terms of subjectively, they feel the same.
Going back to the prompt, right? The prompt is innocent men feel attacked by feminism.
Suffer.
Right? So, if you make a mistake, you should be held accountable to that mistake.
Absolutely.
Now with the forms of internet coming out and communication going everywhere, y'all are talking about feeling attacked for being able to say certain things or not.
Not attacked. I just think that psychologically, some innocent men do suffer from the narratives that are pushed.
But I would say they also suffer if you're speaking about laws. I think feminism has changed a lot of laws now all are women beneficiaries. So if you look at divorce courts, if you look at family courts, if you look at abortion, if you look at a whole host of laws, all of them are women primary. Men are heavily affected by those.
So I disagree actually on that. I don't actually agree on the whole loss stuff, but just going back to like the prompt on the suffering thing, I do.
Yeah, legally on paper it's all equal, but in the execution of said laws, it is skewed in favor of women in terms of the sentences given, in terms of obviously the time served, in terms of the percentage chance of them getting custody as primary caregiver. It's all kind of skewed, but then there's other factors to go into that, as in, maybe some men don't want to take care of their kids because, again, men are interested in things and not so much people, so they might want to, take care of that, see their kids every so often, but,
take care of business.
Do you think that you have to be aware that a man can't just go and say whatever they want, where a female can't?
Should they be honest?
That is not true. A female can say a lot more than a man can, especially online, on social media, on the internet. There's a lot of there's been a rape threat made, and a woman said no one will judge an eye. Cancel culture doesn't come in. But if a man said that same thing, they would get canceled immediately. I believe men today are really weak. Mostly they're lazy, and I feel like there's no courage. I feel like men today are okay.
See the backlash when Andrew Tate came up and said, and he said what he said, in terms of, you know, like women can be trash too. Like in that aspect of, you know, they don't listen, they're disobedient, all this kind of stuff. When you're stating some things like that, you know, too masculine, complete backlash. When women are over here saying men are trash, men ain't shit, you know, men are this, men are just here to be used and abused for our benefit because we're queens, everyone just goes, cool. And I think the reason why there is not so much of a backlash is because on a fundamental level, instinctively, we know that there is no way, shape, or form that the subjugation of men could take place, essentially, without a massive psyop of the mind, like without massive indoctrination. Because on a fundamental level, when taken to nature, physically, men are dominant. So when men are saying things like women ain't shit, they need to get back into the kitchen, all this kind of stuff, it is a direct threat to women's independence, because men could essentially use force to get that situation back into place. And there's not much that could be done about that, which is unfortunate. But that's why I think there's a level of backlash when men do it versus when women do it, because essentially we know that women could never really subjugate men to something completely without making it psychological, like psychological warfare.
Losers, and I mean, more men need to stand up for what they truly believe in, and I feel like there's not enough.
Back to the prompt, do innocent men suffer from feminism? I think look at with this entire Johnny Depp, Amber Heard situation that happened this past year. You have all of these feminists rushing to the camp to defend Amber Heard, and then all those things come out during that trial, and people are like, maybe Johnny Depp isn't the horrible guy that we thought he was, right? So that is an example of feminism radicalizing these people to just be like, I'm gonna be anti-male, and I'm gonna go root against this guy. But to the point of the political...
How is Johnny Depp a victim of the system?
We have 30 seconds left on this prompt, so just finish your thought.
But yeah, but also to...
A victim? How is he a victim of the system? Bro, he lost opportunities. Hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain because of accusations and the smeared image. That's how. He suffered. That's how. Financial losses. That's how. I don't even know why he's asking this question. It's so stupid.
Kavanaugh. Big example there.
So
you have all these allegations that come up when he's going to be the Supreme Court justice that never came up before.
Right, exactly.
What did that do as far as enable people who have fake accusations to say, I'm going to ride the coattails of the Me Too movement and ruin innocent man's life?
Really quick though, where's Brett Kavanaugh right now? He's on the Supreme Court?
He's on the Supreme Court. Thank God,
and
because
then
truth
Johnny
won the
Depp,
day.
was he convicted of a crime?
Because truth
No,
won the day.
But that's the point.
He won in spite of feminism.
But he lost a significant amount of money just to try to clear his name. It should be looked at objectively without inferring any blame on anyone until all the facts are out, until we have that verdict. That's when people can start canceling people from deals. But unfortunately, companies are eager to bend to the will of the public narratives these days because they don't want to lose money, and it's all about the money.
There's a pendulum, and for a really long time, people weren't called out for things, people weren't held accountable. So now, yeah, the pendulum's swinging. Maybe there are going to be some false accusations and stuff going too far. Yeah. I would rather have 1 million false accusations like over 1 million people that deserve to be in jail not being in jail. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather people go through you'd rather have 1 million people that are guilty on the streets than a million people that are not guilty have to go through a trial.
I would rather
have... All right, reset.
Oh, that is dicey, bruv. That is dicey. I would rather have the innocent in jail. I don't know, man. That's a dicey.
I don't know. Obviously there's a happy middle ground where everything's looked objectively, and you get as much of the bad ones out and as much of the innocent stay. You get as much of the bad ones in jail, and you keep as much of the innocent people out of jail. I think that's what you want the system to get to that point. But if you had to pick one, I'd rather the innocent man be in jail, son. Because in some way, shape, or form, they put themselves in the vicinity of someone who was able to take advantage of them. So, to an extent, you could say they put themselves in a compromising position if you're taking ultimate accountability. So, yeah, I'd probably pick the innocent people in jail. Yeah. Just be careful of the people you choose, man, because it could be you. Be selective.
Women are fit to be president.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, really, this is a no-brainer for me.
Right? Yeah, I think that this is, I expected this to be unanimous, but I think this will probably be the biggest agreement amongst the group today.
I think in terms of the religious guy, it makes sense because biblically, God called for the man to be the head, so God, man, woman, children. Biblically, I understand his point and why he's there, but objectively speaking, yeah, why not?
I think that.
But optically, it doesn't. I don't know, because we haven't had that many female leaders in terms of like presidents or whatever. We had 3 female prime ministers in the UK. Theresa May quit, and the lady just passed now, I've forgotten her name, blanked. She also resigned. So the last 2, Margaret Thatcher did her a tenure. She's the only one who really held it down. Big up Margaret, out here doing things. But yeah, the last 2 have really folded under the pressure. Boris folded too, so let's recognize that. But yeah, but obviously that was because of the pressure, because of he would have stayed in, but the fact that he partygate and actually partying during coronavirus really set him back a little bit. So he was kind of strong-armed into resigning. But I feel like in the other cases, the pressure for the ladies, especially the female prime ministers, was a bit too much. And I feel like the last lady who was in, I forgot her name. Why has my name escaped me? But she also was pressured out because of the tax bill she was about to implement. That have been detrimental to people in the UK. So yeah.
Anyone who's born in America above the age of 35 that's not a felon,
yes, fit.
You can be president.
Right, yeah. And I think a lot of times in these conversations we focus on the differences between men and women, but just based off of studies, men and women are very similar creatures. I mean, we're the same species. We think the same on most levels.
What should I say, species? Yeah, we think the same on most levels. Yeah. Just slightly different when it comes to our own survival.
And to say that a woman can't do the same job as a man, to me, is completely regressive. Now, I consider myself an anti-feminist today, but this is the type of question that I would be a feminist for 50 years ago. To me, it should be a unanimous, thing stepping forward, but I look forward to hearing what they have to say.
Biblical.
I think eligibility and optimal option is the difference. I think a woman can be eligible to be president. I think is it the optimal situation? No. I would kind of disagree with you where you say men and women are generally the same. I think we're completely different in the way that we process information, the way that we make choices, the way that we build society. Men are very hierarchical in nature. So it's very merit-oriented. I think women are a little bit more communitarianism or communism. That's what I'm looking for. Communistic.
Yeah, in terms of like aggression and those type of levels, we kind of all tend to be in a similar scale. But when you look at obviously the extremes, you tend to find men on the extremes of violence. You would say, so yeah, we're kind of similar, but when you look at the extremes, it deviates drastically, but generally we align in the same area, but there's certain aspects in which
it's really different.
Community-based?
Community-based, right, thank you.
please.
Where everybody gets one. So you get one, you get one. It's not really based on output, which I think is good in some cases, but I think in a general scheme of building a structure of...
And again, yeah, this is very evident on Bear Grylls' Survivor and a lot of Survivor shows. If you watch how the women tend to want to do things, it's more communitarian. But if you look at how the men tend to want to do things, is you have a role, you have a role, you have a role. You better fulfill your role, because otherwise, you know, you might not get as much as you think you're gonna get. You know.
Of government, I would say having it more merit-based, very capitalistic, where you go out, you work for your living, you provide for your family. I think
because naturally, this is how it is in nature, how we have evolved from. If you go out and you hunt and you catch, you know, your family eats. If that person doesn't go out and catch and hunt, their family don't eat. You know what I mean? Like if that other tribe is slacking, they're on the brink of death. If your tribe is slacking, you're on the brink of death. If your tribe is excelling and out here hunting and winning, you're winning. And that's why some people tended to even, you know, just pillage, because they're like, look, they did all the hard work. I'm just gonna come in and take all their shit.
that's the way that men typically build society.
So even a woman whose worldview aligns with yours, you don't think that she would be fit to be president, even if...
A woman who had his worldview would not want to put herself in that position of president, because she fundamentally understands that if she has that worldview, she would have the understanding of it wouldn't be optimal, so she wouldn't do it.
Every single view she has aligns
right,
with
like
yours.
I said, she could be fit, but is it the optimal situation?
But why would she? So is the only reason she's not optimal because she's a woman?
I would say it's not optimal because God called men to be the leaders of society.
So again, you keep going back to God, and we keep trying to center
'Cause it's Christian,
Christianity
man.
as like the know-all, end-all. What about all the religions that had female goddesses and matriarchal systems?
We also don't have to sidestep Christianity as if there were not any female leaders in the Bible either.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to for my reason why. I think it was in London, and it's before their current prime minister. I'm forgetting her name, but she was their mayor for about 2 months, and she ran away. She pretty much resigned, was done with it.
Liz
I
Truss,
personally
yes,
think
Liz.
that women are more emotional beings. We are not similar.
And that's actually not factually true. There are big differences between us, and those differences are very vast on the spectrum, but we are a lot more similar in the way we process information.
Well, yeah, in the way we process information, 100%, but
it's like trying
in the extremes, it kind of deviates
feminism
a lot.
has created, especially Western women, to be more emotional, more erratical on like their decision making, and more like just more emotionally charged. And that's where I brought up the London thing, where I feel like that's a good example of that happening, where the pressure got to him. Resigning is coward to me, like being a coward.
So has a male president ever resigned?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
Richard, if I can interject.
But Richard Nixon, it was because he was getting put into crime. Like that was a
so it's like double.
Yeah,
that's not better.
That's not better.
So if I can interject, so you're kind of using this one anecdotal evidence of like, oh, this one woman got in office. Are you aware of all of history? Because like literally, men led pretty much every nation. I'd say about 99% of nations forever.
Yes.
So like, yeah, all the good.
And there's a reason for that, because naturally we are competitive and we're going to understand what is the best. If you had a matriarchy being led by a woman seeking peace and equality among us all, and you had a patriarchy willing to pillage and take and do what is necessary to decimate others for their own survival, they were toast. They were finished. So they would not stand a chance against the patriarchy stereotype, because essentially the patriarchy is built for competition. It is built to dominate. It's built to be the best. Why did we even go to the moon? Why didn't we as human beings, why did we go to the moon? It's because competition forced us to rise to the occasion to get there faster than we would have. Now there's no competition to get to the moon. No one's on the moon. That's the difference that competition makes. Competition builds innovation. Competition between people builds in positive directions. Competition is necessary.
Good things that have happened from nations, sure, you can attribute that to men. Every bad thing is also attributed to men. I'm not using this.
Yes.
because naturally, that's the way it is. To sit here and say, oh, men are just objectively bad because every bad thing in the world that's happened is men, every good thing that happens is men. It's just neutral. It just is. Because all the good and all the bad has happened is done by men. So it just is what it is. It is what it is. To sit here and talk about it like, you know, it's like a profound statement. It's just like, oh.
As an argument to say men are bad and shouldn't be leaders, what I'm saying is you can point to any person that did a bad job, and then you can latch onto their gender and say that's a reason why that gender shouldn't do something. It's not a good example. It doesn't make any sense.
But I do want to go back to you saying a woman as a leader and how some of those things might not be fit to be president.
Right.
I think that when we talk about a lot of the problems men are facing, a woman being president could actually help some of those, especially in facilitating a society where talking about your feelings is more accepted. I do believe in a 100.
See, like patriarchy was essential for the past to survive in such a competitive environment. But in a future where everybody's connected digitally, matriarchy might be the winning system. We'll see how that goes. Like a more communitarian system might be the winning system. We'll see how that works, how that goes. But if the matriarchy is one of limiting choices and limiting discussion and limiting people's ability to speak out against it, it'll just become as tyrannical as the patriarchy, but just in a different way. And we're already seeing it. So to sit here and think, oh, it's going to be better. No, it's not. It's just going to have different problems and they're going to be bad.
100% merit-based society, which is why I believe that anybody, man or woman, gay or straight, black or white, can be president if they have the merit to be so. But I think that to say that just because a woman makes some decisions differently would somehow have a negative impact on society is all just based off of assumption when it could actually have a very positive one.
The gender pay gap is real.
Well, yes, it is real. It is real, but why is it real is the question, is a real question. If the question was the gender pay gap is only exists to oppress women, then people would be like, no, that's wrong.
I agree that the pay gap is real, but I don't agree with the studies that a lot of people use to say that it's solely based because of being a woman, rather than taking into account career preference, time taken off, the actual way you do your job. There's a lot of other variables that go into these studies, and a lot of times I see the feminist movement say, oh, if you're a woman, you're gonna make less than a man, and it's just a lot more complex than that.
So I agree that it's a nuanced conversation, so there's like two things that I wanna put on it. My dad, right, do you think my dad raised my brother and I and my sister the same?
Obviously not.
No, they shouldn't.
Well, yeah, but
they shouldn't, because a man or woman will face different challenges in the world, and that you should be raised to combat the challenges you will face as that. And if you're raised in a neutral sense, then you miss a whole bunch of shit. If you get what I'm saying, like ideally, you should be able to explain to your son how women think and how women, evolve and how they work, and essentially you should do the same thing for your daughter, but you can't raise them the same because you have to teach them fundamentally different life skills to help them for their survival. Not completely different. Everything would be similar, but there'll be a lot of nuance in the way you teach it and how you teach it, because again, there's a different way we communicate and there's a different way we tend to move through the world.
But like in the sense that my dad pushed me into different things than he pushed my sister towards. I think women are raised in a way where they're not encouraged to pursue their interests. And now we're starting to get to a generation where I think that might happen, but it's gonna take some time. But
we are in a generation where it happens. People are told to pursue their interests right now. People are told to do what you wanna do. You can do it. Anything you wanna do, you can do it. We are there.
And the second one is gonna be that you get what you negotiate. And this is, I can only give personal experience again. My dad has worked in HR of a company. They offer men more at the start than they do women because men are more likely to negotiate anyways. Women are more likely to take the first thing that is offered.
That's true, yeah.
So, and that is the thing where they take advantage of the fact that they know women feel uncomfortable in a male-dominated space. So you're going to get a job interview. You're getting interviewed by a man. Everyone you saw when you walked in, for the most part, was a man. And then they offer you a salary. You're going to be a little bit less likely to push back.
But that's
and
not
that's
on
my
the,
personal experience.
But that's not on the company in that example. That's on the women, unfortunately, right? They have to be their own.
And that's true. The company's doing what is smart because they understand psychology, and as they should, you should learn from the market, understand what the market requires. And if you understand that someone's not going to be willing to negotiate, you obviously lowball them. And if they decide to negotiate higher, then you accommodate. But if you know there's going to be the likelihood of resistance is low, you move. It's fundamental. In everything, people do that. War, people do that. If you understand the fundamental resistance is going to be low, you move.
Own best advocate, they have to stand up for themselves. They have to negotiate better. You look at this issue.
Pay them more.
When you look at
but
right,
based
like,
on
but when you look at this
Exactly.
issue,
It's like if you look at it like from a market standpoint and an economical standpoint, you're making the right decision. And if the person does not have the knowledge to negotiate themselves into a higher rate, then that is unfortunate. But you have to take some accountability to learn and understand that these psychological things are being done so that you can put your best foot forward. This is why I always say you have to learn how men and women operate. So whenever you are put in situations, you can recall and understand what everybody is likely to do so you can be a step ahead of the game.
Of the gender wage gap also too, it's the narrative that surrounds is absolutely factually untrue. You're looking at the average income or salaries of men and the average incomes of women, and obviously there's gonna be a difference. Men and women choose to do different things. Like you said, men tend to dominate higher paying industries, higher paying careers. Women tend to go do other things.
I also think that there is a level of preservation that is omitted in these types of conversations. You guys say it's nature, right? I have 2 daughters. If I push my daughters into a male-dominated space, bricklaying or something like that, who are my kids gonna have to work around? Are they gonna have to endure locker room talk? Those are things that.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. That's if you push them. If you push them, that is then trying to socialize them to do something. But if you were to let them, you have to give them a breadth of things and say, look, you have options here. What would you like to do? You're gonna explore this. How do you like it? Do you like it? I don't like it. No. But if you're gonna sit there and say you're gonna do bricklaying, you're gonna be a bricklayer, you're gonna be a bricklayer, you're gonna be a bricklayer. Obviously, it's gonna alter their perception. But if you give them a breadth of options and you let them see where they gravitate, what they gravitate to and what they don't prefer, you kind of get an inkling of what they're going to want to do.
Are real things that I'm going to have to entertain in my thought process when I decide where I'm going to push my child. So that's why
that's the thing. You shouldn't push them to something. He's part of the problem. He's part of the problem. You shouldn't be pushing people to something. You should be presenting people with options and seeing where their interest lies. When kids are kids, it's the point. It's a time for discovery, not pushing them in a certain direction. Allowing them to discover what they want to do, helping them curate a learning experience in different fields to see what they love and find passion in.
I'm saying it's not just nature. There are societal.
No, it's not. I agree.
There are society.
100%, it is not just nature, but again, if you force someone and you put pressure on someone to do something, I guarantee you they're going to do it. But if you allow for a nurturing environment where people are given options, you see exactly what that person wants to do.
Societal thing.
Because they might do things just to please you, him as the dad, because they feel like if they don't do it, they'll be disappointed. We hear this all the time. I feel like I had to go to college because otherwise my parents would be disappointed in me. I have to get a degree because I'll be the first in the family to get a degree. I don't want to disappoint my parents. You see what I'm
things
saying?
in place that put women at a deficit when it comes to making money.
If a woman feels intimidated, that's on her. Like, that is on her. She needs to fight it. And I don't believe the wage gap exists because you're given the same opportunity to earn the money. The fact that you don't fight for your salary or don't fight for the wage because you feel uncomfortable, it's on you. At the end of the day, it's on you. If you go in and you're applying for a job and you feel intimidated and then they say, oh, we're gonna pay you minimum wage, and you agree to it when you know you should be earning like $20 or $30 or whatever.
If you understand the market and the industry you're in and you know exactly what that industry should be paying you, you should go in there
with your chest held high and say, look, I've analyzed, I've got offers. Even if you don't have offers from other places, you say, look, I've got offers from here, here, and here that all pay in this range. You guys are obviously lowballing me here. I don't understand why, but you have to come in there smart, tactically, systematic. I don't understand why you're lowballing me, because clearly this industry pays this much, and yet I am here with this level of experience and you want to pay me this much. It makes no sense. I'll take that and go somewhere else and see how they react.
It's on you. You can't cry about it and say, oh, this is because men dominate.
Wait,
well, so
I'm sorry, can I
go
interject?
ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so it's on the woman that she feels intimidated, right? That's kind of the
Yes.
paramount. So then, is that the same when it comes to like once you're actually hired and once you are the energy or the environment that you work in as well?
This is the thing, like to sit here and consider the energy. Like obviously people should respect of each other's energy, but innately the two, we kind of communicate differently. So it will be a different workspace, especially depending on how you were raised and if you were given the full breadth of the differences in communication styles and you understand how to navigate that. But if you don't understand that and you just chilling with it, then it's going to be obviously more stressful in that type of situation. And there's a level of nature that influences that. So
yeah.
So
100%.
So the company has no responsibility to make a safe work environment or anything like that?
I never said that.
I'm asking you a question.
I said feeling intimidated is not the same as being intimidated or being constantly pushed to be like intimidate. You know what I mean? Like if I were to you and go, yo, I'm
yes, the difference. There is a difference. It's like this, yeah? Statistically, when lights are turned off in a neighborhood, there is no more level, the level of crime does not increase compared to when the lights are on. But when you go outside, you get the feeling that there's a higher likelihood of crime when there's really not.
I'm gonna hit you or yo.
No,
you know what I mean?
I wouldn't say
like,
that. The idea that women are tasked with their own social context and creating the environments for themselves that they want to operate within, even though they are continually stripped of power, is infuriating and is disrespectful. It echoed the sentiment of Black people keeping themselves down because of the acknowledgement of racism.
Again, if we look back, even if we look at Tulsa, there was a bustling Black community in Tulsa. They had their own banks. They were really, really doing well for themselves. Obviously, the Americans who came in there, the white Americans came in there and bombed the hell out of it. Fuck that shit up. But in doing so, you understand that you have the capacity to get to that point. And whenever they introduced crack and cocaine in Black neighborhoods and really derailed progress for Black people, you understand that if you understand this is what they're doing or trying to do, you can then actively work together as a community to exterminate these things out of your community and build back up to the point at which you were before. But they pit people against each other, especially in the community, and you have problems. You have infighting and then you have problems. So to a certain extent, you have to take accountability and say, look, they could try and put us down, but if we work together as a community, we will strive and do better. And you will. You did it before, you can do it again. More challenges? Yes. But you can still do it again. You have to rise up to the occasion. There will always be challenges. It's how you meet them that counts.
I think we'd all agree, teachers, nurses, medical professionals, objectively important jobs for the fabric of society.
In the United States.
And we clearly undervalue these industries that are women dominant. Do you think that that's just a coincidence?
No, where I would agree with you is I do think that teachers and nurses should make more money. But that doesn't factor into the point that there is a pay gap, because if a man goes to be a teacher, he's still going to get paid the same amount as a woman.
All right,
So
let's
it
take
doesn't
a job.
really matter.
Let's take a job where men and women both participate.
But essentially, like, anyway.
Cup's going on right now. Look at the U.S. American men's team and the women's team.
The men's team is also significantly more skilled than the women's team and brings in a bigger audience.
More people watch it.
More people watch it. Do you think people that play...
said they play the same game. It's because the level of competition is higher, so it requires more effort, and that effort is seen and realized. The level of execution the skills performed is just of a higher quality, and that's just the way it is.
Play in the WNBA should be making the same thing as NBA players.
Exactly.
I don't think NBA or WNBA players should be making
That's
more
not
than
my question. That's not my
2%.
question. In 2022,
But then you fundamentally don't understand what humans value. Humans, above all else, value entertainment. That's why the entertainment industry has become this juggernaut of an industry, because that is the industry that is used to keep us comatose. It is used to keep us compliant, subservient, to keep us almost in a daze through life, to keep us not actively pursuing and fighting for things we need to fight for in the world, like how the people at the top are fucking us.
women are not victims. But yet we live in a society that glorifies being a victim, glorifies being oppressed, glorifies people feeling bad for you. When all honesty, all it does is, again, it provides another disservice to the people that are these so-called victims.
I haven't always understood consent in intimate relationships.
It's so funny how,
one of the problems is consent is not always clearly communicated, and I think that's one of the things that it's kind of been weaponized against men. Whether the woman wasn't excited about it, or she didn't like the guy, or she was drunk.
It's a fine line. That's why, guys, you always err on the side of caution. You always, ladies and gentlemen, always err on the side of caution. Make sure it is understood. Make sure that, you know, all parties are happy and willing.
Or all these things that they can use to
any sense of doubt, don't do it.
Remove their consent and their responsibility in that. It would ruin the romantic image of that guy if he asked to kiss you or if he asked to have sex with you at every single point.
The minute someone says, you know, I don't think, maybe we shouldn't. Cool. Cancel it right there and then. Stop it.
Yeah. My experience with it has been a little bit different. As a black kid, I was taught that if you engage in a romance with a white woman, it's a possibility that she might falsely accuse you of something. Yeah. So I've always been, I guess you can say hyper consensual. Right. What that has done for me is it has revealed the bullshittery that is all these like backdoor cuts that men act like women take to accuse them of things. It's super possible to never engage romantically with a woman in a way that she doesn't want. It's not even hard.
Right. There's enthusiastic consent.
It's not hard.
You shouldn't want to feel like you're talking somebody into something or like they are okay with it. Right. You have sexual encounters with people that want to have the sexual encounters, that are excited about it, and that's something that like I do think gets lost. Like consent. One more thing, really quick. I know young men that like definitely didn't want to have sex as much as they were, and they were men, but they feel like they had to, they don't, and it's like these things, like it's informing young people, like even though you don't want them to have sex at a young age, you have to inform them of it because they'll do it wrong if you don't.
It's baked into our culture from the music that we listen to. It's in porn. It's a dominating culture. When you go into a relationship, these are the things that you see, so you try to enact on that. Consent doesn't make you any less of a man. Consent is really creating the safety for the other person to mutually just be down for it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't even have to be like in the sense of like completely verbal. You can tell like, but this is if you're seasoned. If you're not seasoned, verbal all the way, but you can tell body language, how someone's talking to you, how someone's interacting with you, and any type of, you know, incongruent body language. If the words they're saying don't match the actions they're doing, kind of just back off. You know, like it doesn't feel like, you know, maybe they're trying to convince themselves to do something that they shouldn't really be doing. Then, you know, kind of back yourself out of being like, nah, it doesn't feel right.
Honestly, I didn't really hear anything that I disagreed with over here. It's just the only thing in this conversation that I worry about is lack of accountability. Because a lot of times, you know, women or man, doesn't matter what your sex is, if you're engaging in sexual activity, you can pretty much signal that it's consensual, and it can get confusing. But then if a woman or if a man doesn't verbalize it and then they go back, they confuse consent with regret. And I've seen that a lot in court cases or just throughout our culture.
But that's where the coercion thing comes, right? And like the context around, like the context surrounding, like if they were to say no, would they have been safe? Would there have been repercussions?
But
Are you putting them in a position where
or is that on the woman? Because if they agree
it depends
to
on
do
the
it,
situation.
unless they were raped.
Like the Harvey Weinstein thing, like if any of those women say no, their careers are ruined.
Right.
They're in danger because they're in a,
that is
like
totally
so it's the context. I don't think that false accusations, especially for sexual assault, are anywhere near as common as people want to make them out to be. And I think the much bigger problem in day-to-day life is the consent issue, not the false accusation.
That's undermining it though, because you guys haven't gone through it. Saying that is okay is not.
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying that in terms of what's a bigger issue that we need to worry about.
I think there are some nuanced issues that you have to pick a side, and I'm picking women not getting raped over men not getting falsely accused.
But that isn't.
I don't think that you
those aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah,
it's a shame that we live in a world that's so black and white that you can't balance the interest of those who are victims, true victims, and also those who are falsely accused. One false allegation of rape, sexual assault, discredits a lot of other real ones in people's eyes. It ruins the lives of people who are true victims of getting their cases heard in a fair and positive light.
I think what we're all circling around is that what we need in our society is comprehensive sexual education.
Yeah.
And I think the topic of consent needs to be just as important as the topic of protection.
You probably would if men got raped more.
Now feminists are in it to get laid.
No. I did it for the lols. They did it for the lols.
I'm excited for this one because I don't like women sexually, so this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I think
there is probably a fair few Tom, Dick, and Harrys who are just in there trying to jive with it to try and be like the super nice guy who's doing something to get something out of it instead of doing something genuinely because they stand for something.
I think that if you are a straight male, the way you view women subconsciously is always going to have something to do with sex.
Right.
On just a fundamental level, just in nature. Now, that might not be the whole premise, but I do think that it has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think again, the problem with these statements is they're general. I think there are men out there that are predatory and are posing as feminists to get into the pants of women.
Even on a more micro level, so I was literally just watching a recent Jubilee video, and it was one about a man. He was a self-proclaimed pickup artist. And this is almost a direct quote of what he says. He goes, "Oh hell yeah, I fuck with feminism."
I like to think I'm a feminist. I fuck with feminism.
And I think it's kind of emblematic of there are men that don't understand the full gravity of how people who are real feminists feel about the situation. And they kind of see it as this cool hot social issue. And if I talk about it, it puts me in the group of the good people. I don't think it's always heinous. While there are people that are doing that, some of it's just such blatant ignorance that they lack the understanding.
Yeah, I think even the posing of the question is indicative of the truth of the matter, that I think a lot of the time it is that, because if you align yourself with a lot of the more traditionally toxic masculine traits and you're not viewed as on team woman, then you're not going to be in line with a lot of Western women in today's society.
I have a few friends that go to these parties and they're like, oh yeah, fuck Andrew Tate. They all watch them, but they'll be like, oh fuck Andrew Tate, just so they can get laid because they know that's how a woman will feel like, oh wow, they're listening to me, or oh wow, they agree with me, and feel a little more connected.
Again, to sit here and you must understand that people on that, the average Joe, whatever, they would do what they need to do to get what they need to get to. Lie if they need to, they would do that. That's the game. That's the game they're forced to play because it's so competitive now.
Connected.
Yeah. And I think for me, as someone who believes genuinely in the fact that men and women are equal, but I don't go around parading myself as a feminist because the only thing that I could think that justifies being a third-wave feminist, being a feminist today, is you must just want to get laid, because there's no reason to believe in all of these crazy things that go after your identity as a man, that seek to strip you of your masculinity, that perpetuate these terrible ideas that men are bad and evil and all of these things, that you can't be a provider, you can't be a protector, all these things. I think that has to be the reason.
Some of us don't identify with, me personally, I don't identify with masculinity. I might show masculinity, but I don't think feminism is taking anything away from me.
But I think that's a societal problem, though. The fact that masculinity itself has become a dirty word is a problem.
I didn't say it's a dirty word. I'm saying it doesn't matter.
Why do you choose not to identify with it anymore, even as a man?
Because when you say it, nothing in my heart feels anything. It's just a word. It's just a. I don't think anything I do is because I'm a man. I think that it's because of who I am.
Yeah, instinctually, because that's what drives you. But this guy's dumb. What?
Yeah.
What? What?
Well, let's hear it.
I think to your point,
like I don't know why you even call it a chair. It doesn't make you feel like when you say a chair. It's like, bro, what?
asking like, why would any man be a feminist? So I just think that we don't all view feminism the way you do. Similar to the way the Black Lives Matter movement has been moved and changed and developed in terms of the way that people identify it. The things that you speak about when you talk about third wave feminism is not what I mean when I say that I am a male feminist. And so, yeah, no, if you can't understand that me wanting to make the world a more equal and level playing field for my two daughters, for my wife, for my mother and my mother-in-law, and standing in front of people who want to take liberties.
The Western world is an equal playing field. You just need to perform as an individual. You need to perform, understand the differences, your advantages and disadvantages, and work with it. Because you can succeed. Other people have done it, so you can do it too. It's just about being smart about it and not adopting a almost victim mentality when you're in competition to rise up through the ranks in businesses.
Away from them. That's the reason why I am a male feminist. It's a perpetuation of oppression that I'm trying to dismantle.
And for me, I think we're taking this from a very heteronormative perspective, right? All of my friends aren't straight women. So I'm not gonna look at my non-binary or LGBTQ friends and be like, oh, just because I can't have sex with you, I'm not gonna fight for your rights. There is no personal gain for just saying that we should be there.
Two things can be true. I agree with you. And I think a lot of us agree on what we're talking about. It's just these labels are in the way of getting us to that.
It's also a blanket statement.
One thing to build on top of too is, to an extent, leading men to want to take advantage of women is the very pressure put on by other men. Yeah. That if you're not sleeping around, if you're not getting laid, you aren't. And that doesn't come from women, at least from my experience.
That's
and
patriarchal
so
culture.
If men were a little bit like so, I'll say this now. I didn't lose my virginity till I was 22. Now I'm fine with that. If you ask me at 21 how I felt about that, I would change the subject as quickly as I possibly could because I was ashamed
They make movies
of it.
about it.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, I was ashamed of it, but that's part of.
Because again, it's not because the shame comes because you are not able to perform as others are able to perform. I think that's where it comes in. It might not be inherent to the fact that there's a hidden pressure for you to do something. It might also just be due to the fact that you see other people performing and you're not performing. If you are in a class and other people are getting good grades and you are not, you're the only person getting a D and everyone else was getting A stars and A's, you will start to feel self-conscious and start to feel, fuck, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? And that's natural. That is a natural pressure to feel because of this predicament you find yourself in. So there could be a pressure. Again, both things could be true at the same time. There could be a pressure, and it also could be a feeling because you understand that you are not performing as others are performing when you compare yourself to your peers.
The patriarchy.
This is gonna be the last prompt.
No.
I want to hear everyone speak.
But if you were truly masculine, you'd move through it with your chest and say, you know what, it is what it is. I understand I haven't got to it because of my A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If it's because no one wants you, then bruv, you're fucking up.
I want everyone to get their voice in, be mindful of folks that are trying to talk. Step forward if you agree with the prompt. I like living in a patriarchal society.
What? Yeah, I'll move forward, man. I'll step forward. Because, or as in currently, I'd move forward because it is what has allowed us to get to this position. So, simple, point blank, period. It's the best it's ever been. It's the best it has ever gotten. And from what we're seeing, it's only likely gonna get better. So, likely gonna get better. So we'll see how it progresses. But as of currently, it's got us to this point where we can talk about all the things and live in relative, peace. Not much, less wars than there previously were. So, we're doing better than we were before. There's not new empire every
I would say patriarchal society, again, I've mentioned the scriptural basis for this, but I think patriarchal society is the way that society functions best. Yeah, patriarchy is just a man-led society. So I think we've kind of flipped the term on its head to mean something that it doesn't mean, to say that a patriarchy is a society that oppresses women. That's not what a patriarchy is. So I think if you have a patriarchy operating properly, you have men that are responsible and taking care of their families, taking care of the women of society, and in turn the women have equal opportunities to pursue whatever career they want, to be a mom, to be a wife, and to do the things that they want to do as well.
Preach.
So I'll go first. This is a little bit of a personal, emotional thing.
There we go.
At the beginning of September, I lost my brother to cancer. And I took about 2 or 3 weeks off work. And then I really started feeling, you know, the financial impact of it. And I have my girlfriend, you know, people in my life telling me that they want to help me out financially. But I have this thing internally within me that feels like a leech.
Instinctively,
in some way, shape, or form. That is because of this thing that this expectation that we put on men to be providers. It's really fucking hard. And I can't explain why. I would have liked to have a little bit more time than 3 weeks before.
But it's not meant to be easy.
I had to start worrying about fucking money again after my brother passed away.
It's unfortunate.
And I do feel like that kind of is a direct result of the patriarchy. And I know that it is myself, it's my personal feelings, but I think it stems from the society that I grew up in.
You can work through it. I don't understand why you need to sit there again, speaking from the place of someone who's, you know, lost people. You can work through it. 3 weeks is plenty of time. Elephants take the same amount of time to grieve their loss, their lost, and then they move forward. Again, I don't know why you need more time than that. You know, obviously people are different, but again, fundamentally, we don't give you that much time because things have got to happen. You have to feed your family, bro. You have to work. You have to get out there and grind. You have to do it. You have to do it. Again, naturally, you feel that feeling that you have to do something. You can't stay stagnant. It's because you understand instinctively and with the societal pressure is that you have to perform to a degree. Because if this was back in the day, we know it's not, but let's put our big boy hats on. If this was back in the day, you're in the savannah and you lost a family member and you were like, I'm gonna take, you know, my break off hunting for a while, you know, and just really grieve this loss. You know, people start to starve eventually, you know, because that's one man down. One man less than they had before to go out and, you know, with the war party and the hunting party and to scavenge and hunt. That's probably less food for the tribe. So you're putting people at risk. It's unfortunate, but it is life. We have to deal with it. You have to deal with it, manage it, and move forward. You have those 2 weeks to reminisce, to discuss, to spew your guts out, to talk to everyone in your family, to really deep the situation, and then you move on. Ain't no time to, you know, to really like how long do you need? 4 months? Bro, come on.
That I'm even feeling these things.
You're mocking it.
I'm sorry for
you. Yeah, to start, you know, I want to say I'm really sorry for your loss because I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a loved one. So I want to thank you for sharing your story. It's really important for people to hear. But I don't think that it's accurate to blame a horrific situation on one aspect of society or the patriarchy or this without any solid basis.
That is, so I think that's a fair response. And to clarify my statement just a little bit, that's more of a communal problem. I wish there was a little bit more of a stronger community sense within our country.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a patriarchal society is not one of support. It's one of merit. It's one of bootstraps. It's one of strength.
Competition.
Yeah, it's competition.
You said that a merit-based society is somehow correlated with the patriarchy, and I don't see the correlation there, because if you look anywhere in nature, everything is merit-based. You know, lions in the safari, it's about strength. It's about, you know, competition. That's just how our world works. And my biggest flaw with feminism today, or any social movement really, is that some things are just inherent to nature. So to try to solve
equal outcome and solve all of these problems, it's just naive, and it takes away from actually solving the issues that are in front of us, because it's a delusion.
There will always be winners and losers.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back and, we've been asking, what does patriarchy mean, right? I don't think it just means male-led. What I'm trying to dismantle is the institutions in our society reinforcing that males are superior. A lot of societal institutions and staples of our society.
This is the thing, like, you have to understand in what aspect that you're talking about. If the science is there to say there's much more muscle mass, much more bone density, much more this, quicker reflexes, then you can make decisions and say, okay, that's why then you see this inside. That's why then you see this happening inside. That's why you see the gravitating towards this. That's why you see them gravitating towards that. You can make these inferences because there is evidence to support it. So I don't know how you can dismantle that. That makes no sense.
Are reinforcing that narrative that men alone have to take on that mantle of being the one to provide, being the one to lead the charge on.
Because you don't have that biological imperative to which you are able to, make children or birth children. So you have to, by design, go out there and do job. You know what I mean? You have to, by design, do job. Lions are designed that, other female lions will pick up the slack and go hunt with maybe the aid of the male lion to go hunt. You gotta keep it moving.
Fixing a problem, right? Where, like what Tucker was saying, we all experience emotions and, react independently, and we look for community.
Yeah, so I think a direct combat towards the patriarchy is emotional intelligence that we haven't actually talked much about today. We keep going back to business, money, and all these different things because those are things associated with manhood. But if we really want to shift the dynamic.
But I don't understand, like, if you think about traditionally, it was about, if you read the works of Marcus Aurelius, it's about understanding your emotions, understanding how you feel, really understanding that, and having a level of control in such a way that you know when and when not to express said emotions. That's what it's about. Being stoic is about understanding that, there will always be inherent problems with life, and then maximizing those positive experiences in life as much as possible. That's what that's about. When negative happens, if you know you have no direct control over it, you let it go because there is no benefit of you dwelling. You can obviously talk about it, work through it, but beyond that, like, dwelling on it will not reap any beneficial rewards for you. The ROI on that is negative.
It's about how do we own the emotional parts of ourselves as men, and that is not a conversation that is had in society enough, nor is it supported. In a patriarchal society, it impacts men in a way where we feel like we can't let the armor down.
That's what the difference between third.
You can let the armor down, but you have to be in a position where there are other people around you who have their armor ready to stand and protect you because you're vulnerable. Yeah. That's what it has to be, man. You can't be talking to other people who have their armor down as well, because you're all vulnerable. You're all exposed.
You're saying third wave feminism versus first and second wave. I feel like now it's about superiority. When you're saying you're mansplaining, or when you're putting that men do this or men take advantage and men do that, it makes it as we're your enemy, when in reality it should be more about working as a team, right?
I have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
So you were describing that it's shifting to matriarchy, right?
Yeah, matriarchy. Just more like being against, when you're demonizing men for their actions in general.
Yeah, so when we're moving towards a socially matriarchal society, it's mansplaining and it's men being canceled. But when patriarchy is in place, we're dealing with issues of wealth, we're dealing with issues of healthcare, whether you consider it healthcare or not. We're dealing with issues of safety, we're dealing with issues of liberty, we're dealing with issues of choice. It seems that matriarchy is less, I guess, oppressively heavy, because all I have to deal with is you not liking what I have to say.
Yes, it is geared. Naturally, it makes people more complacent, lazy, and it will not be beneficial, especially in a world right now where the world is still divided. There is still country borders. If we were all one and unified as the world, as Earth, then it would be beneficial to adopt that system. But since there's a possibility, there's a threat around every corner, it should not be a system that should be in place, because you will not be able to be competitive against other countries like China, the Russias, and all the other even up and coming African countries. You might not be able to compete with them in the future, even militarily, if you start taking these steps, because you won't have that aggression needed to defend your ideals, because you're going to be on a piece of love train.
Whereas in a patriarchy, I can't make as much money. That's worse.
Well, it's not just about disagreeing about whether or not it exists. And the fact of the matter is, even in a patriarchal society which doesn't exist, men and women can still go and make the same amount of money. If women majored in higher paying fields of study, they would make more money. When we talk about men's mental health, I separate it from patriarchy, because I think that to be expressive about what you're feeling and what you're going through, you have to be strong. And being strong, I associate that with being a man, being masculine. Maybe society would like to beat you up for that. Maybe that's why men are likelier to commit suicide. But that is still an example of strength.
I think that as we get further and further along the generations, we need to start preaching to young men the type of strength that you were talking about. Self-awareness, discipline, and honesty, emotional honesty. Not being tough and not like, being able to go through a lot.
No. You can process emotions without compromising yourself and making yourself vulnerable in that situation. That vulnerability can come when you're in a safe environment. That's what you should be doing. Ensuring that you are in a safe environment, then you're vulnerable. If the situation is hot, if you are emotionally congruent in that same situation, if you're scared, you start crying, you start whining, and it's all going down to shit. But if you're in the shit, you use that discipline, that emotional control, you regulate, you hold, you assess, you make the best possible move on the chessboard, which is not being emotional in that situation. And then when you're in a safe environment, that move on the chessboard can now be to be emotional, because there are no imminent threats.
But being aware when you're going through something, when you're struggling, being able to articulate that.
The threat might be that someone you tell, and someone who's not vetted correctly, might then use that against you in the future. So you have to be smart about
right, and doing it to the right people at the right time. I think that is what strength is. I think that that's a positive message that we could communicate to the next generation about masculinity.
We ended on consensus.
Yes, that is a wrap on male
good,
feminists
man.
versus male anti-feminists. Nice job, y'all.
They say they hate men while trying to become men.
Alright, we check this one out. Hey, that was really real, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. I will catch you on the next one. It has been your boy King, and I was with, as I always say, I'm already starting my words because I'm so thirsty. As I always say, guys, spread love, not WarCraft. Peace to you, and peace be upon your families, guys. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Deuces.